You've heard the 50-30-20 rule. 50% of income to needs, 30% to wants, 20% to savings. It's the most widely taught personal budgeting framework in America. Financial advisors recommend it. Personal finance books repeat it. It gets referenced in every beginner money conversation. And for most Americans living in 2026, it is completely disconnected from reality. Not because the math is wrong, because the assumptions underneath it have collapsed. The rule was designed for a world where housing cost a manageable percentage of income, where healthcare was predictable, where a 20% savings rate was sufficient for retirement security. That world doesn't exist for most Americans anymore. Rent in major cities consumes 40 to 50% of take-home income for millions of people before they've bought a single want or saved a single dollar. Healthcare premiums have tripled in real terms over 2 decades. Retirement requires significantly more than 20% savings rates can produce for most workers. The 50-30-20 rule isn't giving bad advice. It's giving 1990s advice to people living in 2026. Today, we talk about what actually replaced it. Why? The rule breaks down in 2026. Let's run the actual numbers for a median American household. Median household income in 2026, approximately $78,000. After federal and state taxes, roughly $58,000 take home, approximately $4,800 monthly. The 50-30-20 framework allocates needs, $2,400 monthly, wants, $1,440 monthly, savings, $960 monthly. Now, let's look at actual costs. Median one-bedroom rent in a mid-sized American city, approximately $1,400 to $1,800 monthly. In major coastal cities, substantially higher. That's 30 to 38% of take-home on rent alone, before utilities, groceries, transportation, or healthcare. Average employer-sponsored health insurance employee contribution, approximately $500 monthly for family coverage. Transportation for a household with one average car, insurance, payment, or maintenance, gas, parking, roughly $600 to $800 monthly. Add utilities, groceries, phone, and basic household expenses, another $500 to $700 monthly. Total needs for a median American household in 2026, approximately $3,300 to $4,000 monthly. That's 69 to 83% of take-home income, not 50, before a single want has been purchased, before a single dollar has been saved. The 50-30-20 rule assumes needs consume 50% of income. For most Americans in 2026, needs consume 65 to 80%. The math doesn't work. The framework fails before it starts. The problem with one-size budgeting. The deeper issue with the 50-30-20 rule is that it assumes a single framework applies to everyone regardless of income, location, age, or financial situation. It doesn't. It never did. Someone earning $40,000 in a low-cost city has a completely different financial reality than someone earning $40,000 in San Francisco. Someone with student loan debt has a different constraint than someone debt-free with an equivalent income. Someone at 25 with decades to compound has different savings requirements than someone at 45 trying to catch up. Someone in a high-deductible health plan with chronic health conditions has different healthcare costs than someone young and healthy on a standard plan. A single rule that assigns 50% to needs assumes these dramatically different situations are equivalent. They're not. The replacement framework has to account for individual reality rather than statistical average. It has to be adaptive. It has to prioritize based on actual circumstances rather than predetermined percentages. What actually replaced it? The priority stack. The framework that's emerged from people who actually study financial behavior in the current environment is not a percentage allocation. It's a priority stack, a sequence of financial decisions ordered by impact and urgency. You fund the stack from the top down. When one level is fully funded, you move to the next. The percentages are outputs of your actual situation, not inputs you force onto it. Here's the stack. Priority 1. minimum survival, and stability. Before any financial optimization, you need a floor. Housing that's paid, utilities running, food on the table, minimum debt payments made to prevent default, transportation to get to work. This is not a percentage. This is the actual cost of maintaining your life. Whatever it costs, it costs. You fund it first. Priority 2. The $1,000 emergency barrier. Before aggressive savings or debt payoff, you need $1,000 in a separate account that exists specifically to prevent emergencies from destroying financial progress. This is the minimum buffer that keeps life's inevitable surprises from sending you back to the starting line every time something breaks. If you don't have this, build it before anything else. Aggressively. Extra hours, selling things, cutting anything cuttable until you have $1,000 sitting in a separate account. Priority 3. Employer match capture. If your employer offers any match on 401k contributions, capturing that match is the highest return investment available to you before you do anything else. A 50% match on your first 6% of contributions is an immediate 50% return before markets do anything. Nothing available in any investment market reliably beats that. Contribute exactly enough to capture the full match. Not more yet. Exactly the match threshold. Priority 4. High interest debt elimination. Any debt charging above 7 to 8% interest gets attacked next. Credit cards, high-rate personal loans, predatory financing. The reason this comes before aggressive saving, paying down 20% interest debt, is a guaranteed 20% return. No investment reliably produces that. Eliminating high-interest debt produces better financial outcomes than any investment alternative at equivalent dollar amounts. Priority 5. 3-month emergency fund completion. After the $1,000 barrier, after high-interest debt is eliminated or under aggressive attack, you build the full emergency fund to 3 months of essential expenses. Not 6 months initially, 3 months. Build it to 3, then extend to 6 while also investing. Priority 6. Tax-advantaged investment maximization. Roth IRA to the $7,000 annual limit. Back to the 401k beyond the match. Health savings account, if eligible, at $4,150 for individuals. These accounts compound more efficiently than taxable accounts because growth is either tax-deferred or tax-free. Every dollar invested here produces more long-term wealth than an equivalent dollar in taxable accounts. Priority 7. Additional wealth building. Everything above survival, stability, the emergency fund, high-interest debt, and max tax-advantaged accounts goes here. Taxable brokerage, additional debt payoff, real estate saving, business investment, whatever builds long-term wealth in your specific situation. The practical application. How do you actually implement the priority stack? Start with your actual take-home income, not gross. After taxes, what hits your account? List your non-negotiable survival expenses. Actual numbers, not estimates. Pull your bank statements. Actual numbers. Calculate what's left after survival expenses. That is your financial decision-making capacity. Apply the stack to that capacity in order. Employer match, first, then emergency barrier, then high-interest debt, then emergency fund, then tax-advantaged accounts, then everything else. The percentages will emerge from this process based on your actual situation. You don't force 20% savings. You maximize savings given your actual constraints while following the priority sequence. For someone whose survival expenses consume 80% of take-home, the 5% employer match capture might be the only savings possible initially. That's the right answer for that situation, not failure to hit 20%. Smart prioritization given actual constraints. For someone whose survival expenses consume 50%, aggressive movement through the stack is possible and should happen. The framework adapts to reality. Reality doesn't have to adapt to the framework. The 50-30-20 rule was a useful simplification for a simpler financial environment. In 2026, the environment is not simple. Housing costs have exploded. Healthcare is expensive and complicated. Retirement requires more than 20% savings rates can produce on median incomes. Debt burdens affect millions of people in ways the original framework didn't anticipate. A rule built for a different era gives you confidence that you have a plan while the plan fails to account for your actual situation. The priority stack is not as clean as 50-30-20. It doesn't fit on a bumper sticker. It requires you to look at your actual numbers rather than accept a predetermined allocation. But it works. It works because it starts with your reality and builds from there, rather than imposing a framework that may have nothing to do with your reality. Survival and stability. First, emergency barrier. Second, employer match. Third, high interest debt. Fourth, emergency fund. Fifth, tax advantaged accounts. Sixth, everything else after. That sequence, followed consistently with whatever capacity your income provides after true needs are met, produces better financial outcomes than the 50-30-20 rule in the current environment. Not because it's cleverer, because it's honest about what 2026 actually costs. And honesty about what things cost is where every real financial plan has to start. So here's the real question. If you sat down tonight and looked at your actual numbers instead of a hand-me-down rule, which priority would you fund first?